Welcome back to Get Down to Business, the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. So we know that we face enormous existential threats in our world today that make for a bleak future unless we're going to take swift action. And let's face it, China and the United States represent the two largest economies in the world, which means that we have a huge impact on what's going on. That's why I am so excited to welcome the one and only Geshe Michael Roach, who is the co-author of China Love You, The Death of Global Competition. Michael, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Shalom. Yeah.
Absolutely. It is a pleasure. I always love to get to know the person behind the microphone. You have a fascinating background. Certainly, again, this book, China Love You, The Death of Global Competition, which I know just came out about 2 months ago or so. But let's talk about you for a second, Michael. Who are you?
Well, the short story is I grew up in the United States. I was lucky enough to get into Princeton University, and they sent me to the Himalayas to study society in India, and then I ended up studying in a Tibetan monastery for 25 years. And then just before I came back, my teachers encouraged me to see if I could use this ancient wisdom to start a business, and then to fund a charity that we have to save ancient books that we do with Hewlett-Packard Corporation. So I was sent back to start a business to see if I could use the ancient principles in a business in Manhattan. And we started with 3 people. We decided to make jewelry. And that became the largest diamond jewelry company in the world. It reached $250 million annual sales. And in 2009, we sold it to Warren Buffett.
Oh, amazing, amazing, amazing. Congratulations on all of that success. And certainly all of those experiences have led you and your co-author, Dr. Eric Wu, to write this book because you understand something very, very, very unique. So you talk about some things in the book, and I've got to dig into it. You talk about how Chinese and American cultures view things very, very differently. Michael, can you explain what that means? Again, 2 of the world's superpowers, but very different mindsets.
Yeah, and I think, to be frank, in business and in politics, we are the 2 greatest powers in the world. If we can work together and if we can really support each other, then, the world is going to be peaceful and economically very prosperous. And if we sort of compete with each other and disagree with each other, fight with each other, it's going to be a problem for the whole world, and it's going to be difficult economically for the whole world. So the book, the first part of the book is to try to share experiences that I've had working in China for, over 20 years, and just trying to get to know Chinese people and their habits a little differently. I'll give you one example, which is that in China, because it's such a huge population, it's 1.4 billion people total, which is about 400% bigger than more people than the United States, in the same amount of land. And by the way, the farmland is only half of what we have. So you're trying to support basically 8 people instead of 1 person in China. And over 5,000 year history, they've just learned to live in a more crowded environment, and that requires more cooperation with each other. So when I think of the American personality that I grew up with, and I was encouraged to be an individual, to make my own decisions, even in a group, for example, a corporation, I was encouraged to think for myself and speak out, and even if it rubbed some people the wrong way, but that's the American ideal. You see it in American movies. But in China, it's the opposite. If everyone spoke out, if everyone went their own way, because there's so many people in a small space, it would be chaos. And they have had civil wars. We had a civil war, 500,000 people died in 4 years. They had civil wars for 5,000 years, and they really don't want another one. So it's tighter. Things are tighter inside the country. There's more of a policy, and there's more of a philosophy that we go along with the group, we support each other, and then you take these two mindsets of China and the U.S., and of course there's going to be some conflict between the mindsets, I think.
That's for sure. I'm chatting with the co-author of China, Love You, The Death of Global Competition. Again, I'm chatting with the one and only Michael Roach, who certainly we've been talking a little bit about Michael's experiences earlier. And I find it interesting. Again, we've talked a little bit in this conversation about global competition. Obviously, the title, The Death of Global Competition. What would you and your co-author, Dr. Eric Wu, argue is the human cost to this global competition that we face because of our two massive superpowers not necessarily seeing eye to eye?
Yeah. What we do in the second half of the book is we go to the oldest printed book in the world, which is called the Diamond Cutter Sutra. And it was, it was first given as a lecture 2,500 years ago, but then the first printed version of the book came out of China about 1,200 years ago. And that's the first printed book in the world. And that book gives a very interesting argument that when we try to understand each other, when we try to cooperate with each other, when we recognize we have cultural differences, and we kind of excuse those differences for each other, that we're both going to make more money, and we're both going to have a more prosperous country. So that's kind of the basic message or the basic idea of this book, is that Dr. Wu and my own personal experiences working together as a Chinese businessman and an American businessman, we could have competed. We were in the same market, and we got to know each other, and we spent time with each other to find out about our differences and to kind of get used to being different with each other. And then we found ways that we cooperate, and we made a huge amount of money and a huge success. So I think if we could learn about each other more, we could learn about our different histories. The history of China is completely different from the U.S. That explains the differences between us. And if we can work together, we just all make a lot more money. And that's the book kind of has a blueprint of how we could work together and make a lot more success.
That's fantastic, and that's a perfect segue to probably the last piece that we're going to have to end on because of time is, again, you argue in your book, China, Love You, The Death of Global Competition, that China and the United States can actually create a safer and a more prosperous world together. Real quickly, 30 seconds or less, what is the premise of your book of how can we make that happen?
Well, I think the basic premise in 30 seconds is that psychologically and logistically, when we try to help another country, we both succeed. It ends up helping both countries. When we take some American resources and happily share them with China, and China shares their resources with us, the combined effect is great profit, great prosperity for both countries. Yep.
Fantastic. Amazing. Again, I've learned so much in this conversation with Michael Roach, the co-author of China, Love You, The Death of Global Competition. Certainly a fascinating personal story, fascinating corporate story, and all of that combined with co-author Dr. Eric Wu has come together in this book, which is a must-read. China, Love You, The Death of Global Competition just came out in June 2022. Michael, perhaps the most important question that I could ask is how can we get in touch with you and pick up a copy of this fantastic read?
Well, it's available on Amazon, and it's called China, Love You, the name is a funny name. One time when I gave a lecture in China, someone wrote on a piece of paper, China, Love You. and that we chose it for the name of the book, and you can just get it on the normal outlets like Amazon, and
Fantastic.
it's available, and I think it would help a lot if a lot of us read the book and understood more
Definitely.
about Chinese. We
Well, I
could
definitely
work
want to make
together.
sure everybody picks up a copy of the book, China Levy, The Death of Global Competition. We're about to be cut off by a commercial break, so don't touch that dial or listening to Get Down to Business, the show all about small business jobs and entrepreneurship, and we will be right back.